Welcome, everyone. Hopefully everyone's having a good day so far. It's rainy, drizzly here in this part of Ontario, just outside of Toronto. Hopefully you're feeling cozy. I've heard that there's snow in different parts of the country today, rain. It's a little cold, but it's just part of it. We'll just take a minute here, have everybody get settled, have people trickle in before we get started with our conversation today. Welcome to those who just joined. We'll just give it one more minute to let people trickle in, and then we'll jump right in. All right. Thank you, everyone, so much for joining us today on this perhaps dreary Wednesday afternoon. I suppose afternoon for everyone across the country now at this time of day. I hope that you're all taking good care, having a good week so far. And thank you for taking this hour to spend some time with us in this Let's Talk Leadership series event. We've been running this series for a couple of years now, focusing on different aspects of how we can talk about leadership in a different way for climate action. So I'll be so pleased to welcome our three guest speakers here in a minute for this topic on past lessons and future voices, climate action across generations. So this was really imagined to be a conversation about how we can learn from the wisdom of climate action and sustainability of the past, what's going on currently, and how we can look towards a better future, and how we can involve voices from all the way from young people to elders in this conversation and in the work, how we can uplift each other, bring each other all in to do some important work together. Climate action will require all of us, so of course, looking intergenerationally is critical to being able to move forward. And as we get started here, I just want to give a quick thank you to our funders who supported this event today in the event series, the North Family Foundation and Trache Family Foundation. Grateful to have their support to be able to do this work. And I also want to give a quick moment just to talk about the land and to give a bit of a land acknowledgement as to at least where I'm calling in from. Of course, people are calling in from across the country, perhaps outside of the country today, but I'm calling in from what's known as the Credit River watershed. And this is an area just outside of what's known as Toronto. The Credit River watershed is such a beautiful place that I'm so grateful to call home, but is the traditional land of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, the Haudenosaunee, the Huron-Wendat, and many other peoples, both past and present. And this time of year, I think, I look outside at it, raining and a bit drizzly and cold, and I see all the leaves are pretty much off the trees at this point, but it's a time of transition, sometimes hard transitions as we go into a season of rest and retreat. It's a full moon today, so I am feeling a lot of that, transitional energy. And I think it's a great time to be reflective and introspective. And what better time than just right now to talk about how we can do leadership differently and learn from the wisdom of the past and the wisdom of the future, especially during this time where everything is changing. And I'll also just speak a little bit about ASI, as perhaps this might be your first engagement with us as an organization. ASI is a Canadian charity that really helps people and organizations who are leading on climate action through education and engagement. So we've got lots of different programs and ways that we help folks to build their capacity to lead on climate action. But it's really all of our programming is for folks who see themselves as climate leaders and who are ready to rethink what it means to lead forward towards a different future. And our programming falls into four key areas. We have leadership courses that are focused on developing transitional leadership competencies. We have our members network, which is a chance for folks to meet in smaller groups to be able to learn from each other in peer-to-peer sessions, build networks, build community. We've got custom engagements where we work with organizations who are seeking to lead and work differently amidst climate challenges. And then we also have our research. So lots of different ways that we engage in this work, and the Let's Talk Leadership series is one of them. So today, the way that we'll spend the next just shy of an hour together, so we'll do a little bit more just welcome and housekeeping, just to set the tone for the conversation today. And then I'm so pleased to be able to welcome our three speakers. So I'll welcome them up to the virtual stage. We'll have a great conversation together, the four of us, and then we'll close out the session. So hopefully that sounds like a good way to spend the next 55 minutes together. And just for the expectations for you folks as participants today, those who are joining us live, we will not be taking questions during the event today. So hopefully you get to just sort of sit back, listen in on the conversation between myself and our three speakers. We ask that you remain muted during the event just so that we can hear with a lot of clarity all three speakers. You are welcome to have your cameras on. We will have myself and the three speakers spotlit just so you can see the four of us with a little bit more clarity, a little bit less busyness on the screen. But if you've ever liked to change the view of the screen, you could just go to the top right corner of the Zoom window and you should be able to change your view there. So if you want to have your cameras on and you can see each other, that's welcome as well. And feel welcome to engage in the chat. Our speakers have no obligation to be checking the chat. We're trying to be as present as possible in the conversation, but of course they may want to, and you may want to ask questions or drop some links or resources in the chat, engage with each other. So more than welcome to, but yeah, no expectation for our speakers to be answering questions there. So hopefully that works for everyone. And without further ado, I am so pleased to welcome my three speakers here. We've got Abbey Piazza, Desiree Maurice, and Bob Willard. So we'll pin everybody here in just 1 second. And as we get set up here, I want to ask my very first question to all of you three, which is I'd love to hear each of you introduce yourselves. I don't think I can do justice to each of your wonderful backgrounds and experiences. So I do want to ask each of you to go around and to start us off, just introduce yourself, your name, where you're joining from, a little bit about the work that you're doing now, and then your journey of how you got here into this space of climate and sustainability. So I think I'll start, Desiree, if you'd like to start us off.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd like to say hello, Tansi, to everybody. I'm really happy that you guys showed up. Um, and I'll start off by saying that I am originally from Pine House Lake, Saskatchewan, which is the Northern Métis region, Region 3. But I currently am working for and live in the Lac La Ronge Indian Band, which is unceded territory on Treaty 6. So I grew up on the land, and because of who my grandparents were, I started to shape how I approach the aspects of my work in clean energy. It taught me resiliency, adaptability, and the respect for land and everybody around me. And then I began as a community energy coordinator with the Lac La Ronge Indian Band. Pidisawascatu Community Energy is who I work for. So if you look in the background, this is our building. It's two sea cans put together, but we're doing great. And recently I had graduated as a 2020 Catalyst with the Indigenous Clean Energy Group, and I'm also a project steward. So I have the Bringing It Home funding through Indigenous Clean Energy. So my main focus is advancing housing energy efficiency, renewable energy education, and we're leading with an Indigenous aspect to everything that we do with the community. A big thing with us is we don't do anything for the community without the community. So anytime we do any changes, we do community energy plans and community engagements. And this is across 6 separate Indigenous reservations, which is the biggest reservation in Saskatchewan. So it's a lot of work. And I always say capacity building is the heart and the bone of doing this work. My journey allowed me to collaborate with national networks. I just come back from Japan recently. I work with utilities, technical partners. I help translate complex energies into meaningful community-driven solutions. And for me, clean energy is not just about the health of everyone else, but the health and the connection and the self-determination and the empowerment we can give to our community members. Um, just having grown up in a small northern community, being Indigenous myself, I know how important it is to create actual meaningful jobs for my people. So that's my main focus. And I'm affiliated with Iron and Earth, and they're a renewable skills energy program. So that's where I'm at right now. Thank you.
Thanks, Desiree. Yeah, you've done and are currently doing so much for clean energy in your community and beyond. So yeah, I can't wait to ask you some more questions about that. And Bob, would you like to go next? Introduce yourself again, name where you're joining us from, and a little bit about your journey and where you're at now.
Sure. I'm Bob Willard. I'm a sole proprietor. Sustainability Advantage is the name of my sole proprietorship. I live in the Greater Toronto area in Whitby, just east of Toronto. Um, I spent 34 years in IBM Canada, having nothing to do with sustainability, actually. At least I didn't think so at the time. But looking back, my last 10 years in leadership development at IBM kind of got me ready to try to understand how to make change happen on things that I care about. So I woke up to sustainability issues in the latter part of my career there because of some local issues, water quality issues. Um, so I took early retirement in 2000, and for the last 25 years, I've been creating resources for people like you folks and all others that may be useful to them as they're trying to make stuff happen, how to cost justify it, how to see whether or not the changes are happening the way you thought they were, and so on. So I've got about a dozen free open source resources that people can take full advantage of. And by the way, the reason that they're free is because we really don't have time to reinvent the wheel. I just want to get these things out there. As a father and a grandfather, I'm kind of concerned about some issues, especially climate change, that needs a lot of attention, a lot more than it seems to be getting these days. Um, so for the first 15 years or so, I was basically creating resources, writing books. I've written 5 books on this stuff, a couple of white papers. And then I decided to actually use some of these things. So lately I've been trying to get governments, local, provincial, federal governments, to use their buying power to financially incentivize their suppliers, businesses, to pay more attention to issues that the customer, the government cares about, like climate change. So I've been really focused on net zero procurement to try to get suppliers to want to reduce their greenhouse gases. Um, so I've got tools that help implement that. And I've been trying to get the federal government and other governments to adopt those practices because I really think that that buying power has an enormous potential to engage businesses in something that they're hoping that somebody else is going to fix. And unless they roll up their sleeves and reduce their own greenhouse gases, this isn't going to work. So that's what I'm playing with these days. Having a good time, a little frustrating, but that's normal for anybody that's trying to change something that's worthwhile. So I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Thanks for that, Bob. I think that's very true. Yeah, sometimes the most important change is the most frustrating, but also the good work. So yeah, thank you so much for creating all these free resources. I think after such a successful career before even getting into sustainability in a more holistic way. So thanks for that, Bob. And Abby, we'd love to hear from you a little bit more about you, your career journey so far, and where you're calling in from today.
Yes, definitely. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much, ASI, for inviting me, and so honored to be speaking alongside Desiree and Bob today. So yeah, for me, I'm currently based on the unceded territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people, also known as Vancouver. And I grew up Lekwungen speaking territory, and also known as, or colonially known as, Victoria. And that's my background here, actually, is I had the privilege of being able to visit the ocean on a regular basis. And it was just always a place that really brought me joy and peace. During like a very busy time, I would always go here. So I hope if somebody's going through a busy time, you can see this background and find some peace in your day. But yeah, for me, I really was interested in dedicating my career to environmentalism and activism. And I first kind of got exposed to that at university. My undergrad thesis was on a topic of my question was, how do we best pursue environmental change and protection, and what are the best strategies to do so? And I really was looking at, okay, I had spent some time working at an environmental charity, doing door-to-door fundraising. And I also worked on election campaigns, seeing like, okay, somebody really wants to get into government and make a change by being elected. And how can I help as a person to do that? And also looking at different nonprofits that we're working on. The initiative at the time was to resist the Trans Mountain Pipeline. And just looking at all the different strategies that people were trying to implement to resist this. And at first I wanted to go into environmentalism just to be outside and maybe be in the field. But then I realized I love working with people. I love building relationships. And that's how I naturally fell into a community organizer role for the majority of my career. So gathering support, building relationships. I really do think like relationships is at the heart of what we need to foster to get to the next place and where we're going. And also to just be able to withstand and have resilience in this tough, in really tough movements. So yeah, that's something that I've been doing for a long time in my career. And a lot of it was fighting, and saying no to projects. And now I'm the manager of strategic partnerships at Youth Climate Corps BC, and we're really saying yes to something. We're presenting a alternative and a way that young people can make a living wage while staying in their community and working on local projects, and also get workforce ready and in green careers. So now my work is still about organizing, it's still about building relationships, but it's also about building partnerships to allow youth to continue on to their next steps in a long-term green career. And so, yeah, it's more about saying yes to things and coming up with a vision that is positive. And I think that's really refreshing. And it's been really refreshing for the people that I've been working with as well, and working with a lot of young people. So yeah, that's a bit about me.
Thank you so much, Abby. I really like how you framed your career journey as being, starting off just trying to shut down the bad, say no to things, and then transitioning into like, what can we build differently? What can we build bigger and better and differently and more creatively, and trying to help youth to sort of get into that space and imagine things differently and then work in that space too. Thank you so much, the three of you. It's really nice for me to hear again more about the work that you do, and for everyone else too as well. So now I'm going to turn it over to a bit of a deeper question for each of you, just to learn a little bit more, especially in this topic of intergenerational climate action. So Abby, I'm going to turn it back to you to ask you a question about, given all this work with Youth Climate Corps and your work sort of advancing climate action as an organizer, I'm curious what inspired you to focus on creating climate-related job opportunities for young people, why that focus, and how you see youth participation in the green workforce, so to speak, shaping broader climate action across the country.
Yeah, thanks for that question. I think for me, it's been really fascinating being in this position, because I've worked so hard on environmental issues and in different capacities. But something that's been the most rewarding in my career so far is seeing a group of young people on a pathway to a career that they're going to be in long term. That's going to be making a difference in their community and also in the environment, but they're actually going to have a great career. An example of this is something that I've been really working on, is connecting Youth Climate Corps and young people to the building trades. often when we think of somebody in construction, we don't think of them as like, or typically we don't think of them as a climate warrior, but they really are. I mean, in Vancouver, 40% of our emissions is through buildings. And if we can lower emissions in buildings, that person who is doing that has a hard hat on, that is getting their hands dirty, they are a climate warrior. And so I helped facilitate a partnership between BC Insulators and Youth Climate Corps, and we recruited young people into their pre-apprenticeship program. And this allowed us to really be able to focus climate jobs and show that you can have a climate job being in the building trades and attracting young people into a job that they may have never thought about before. And I think this is really important, and why I'm really passionate about this now is that affordability is as we know, as everyone knows, is a huge crisis right now. And it's really hard. I've found it's hard for some people to care about, let's say, environmental issues when they can't even afford to pay their bills. Obviously, as people here, we all know that it's all connected, these issues, but sometimes it's hard for somebody who can't really get by to want to think about, oh yeah, maybe we shouldn't have a pipeline come through because of X, Y, and Z. So I think that's why having an intersecting solution of affordability is really key. And I think for the piece that you asked about with youth participation in the green workforce, I mean, these are real sites for change. Sometimes we don't think about the job site as a site for change or a site of activism or environmental work, but it really is. And when you have young people who have these really instilled values of environmentalism, social justice, getting into positions that they can then build leadership within those roles and make decisions and really start steering the ship, I guess, of like how these organizations work, or maybe like certain decisions on like which materials should we source, or how are we going to treat our people in the day-to-day. So I really do think that that the workplace is a really important site for change, and so that's why I'm really excited about the work that we're doing there.
Yeah, thanks, Abbey. And yeah, definitely, young people want to live full, thriving lives and at the same time want to work in something that feels really purpose-driven and values-aligned. And so it's really important work that you do to try and bridge that gap of, having young people do work that they really care about while also being able to, afford rent, afford food, make sure that they can, have thriving and full lives, because that's critical and important too. We have to enjoy our lives through the hard work that we're doing as well. And as you mentioned, bringing in some of those, lesser thought of climate jobs, and that, every job can be a climate job for sure. So thank you, Abbey. Desiree, I'm going to turn it over to you now. I've got a question for you around how have you seen youth engagement strengthen community resilience? Because I know you've talked a bit about that, especially in your intro. And I want to know some of the ways that you've been able to build bridges between generations or knowledge systems within your work specifically.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the questions. I just wanted to say, Abby, everything you said, I agree with wholeheartedly. It's absolutely a privilege to be able to worry about climate change. And I see that daily. And to strengthen the community resilience, it's not an easy task when you come from a community that we don't even have the opportunity to worry about those things. We don't even, if I speak to the youth here, a lot of them hadn't even known about these possibilities. So when I did community engagements and I'm showing them, like, look at the possibilities in clean energy, and my focus was community energy. So it was a lot about showing them, here's the alternatives to what you can do. I know you want to do oil and gas, but here's another alternative that you can do instead of going into the mines. And then we offered them training as well, like I told you with the Iron and Earth training, which creates that resiliency. The point of these projects is that they're not our projects. I might be 28, which is like in the relative world that is quite young, but the project that I'm creating, this project is just a child, a baby, and it's not going to be mine. At the end of the day, it's the future generations project. I'm just building it for them. I'm building this foundation for them. So that's where the resiliency comes in. That's where we are building capacity and we are building empowerment and educating these children and educating the youth, and not stopping there, but going into, again, like the construction of people and saying, hey, you have these amazing skills. Let's create it even more. Let's teach you building code. Let's teach you how to like, tape up your walls properly. Because I know BCIT does a lot of that work. They're really great up there. So there's a lot of work you can do, re-educate yourself on the home envelope, and then go door to door and sit with our people and sit in front of them, have a cup of tea with them and say, here's some examples of ways that you can improve your life. And in the work that I do, the main purpose and the thing that I say every day, what can I do today to improve someone's life? So what I can do today is I can go into someone's home, educate them on something, and then say, this will lower your bill, like actively lower your bill. And then you can use that money for whatever it is that you need. And that is that is a direct impact that it can have on somebody, which creates long-term resiliency, which creates within my community, they start to trust me more. So I'm building that bridge there. They start to understand where I'm coming from, because a lot of these concepts are very scary. They're big changes, and they're intimidating. Like, we use big words like R value. We use big words like even sustainability. Um, to sit with them and say, you already have this. You have all of this knowledge. We're just saying it in scientific terms, but you already have this knowledge. You already live off the land, and just telling them, like, you're already smart. That is building that bridge. That is creating resiliency. And that is that network building that I so badly want to create, not only in the reservations, but across all of Canada. So we can all be connected. And just quickly, a Cree lesson is Wakutuin, and that means like everything matters, everything is alive, and we're all connected. So the heart of a lot of the work we do in Pidasuiskatup, sorry, over here, is just that. That's about it.
Thank you for sharing that,
Yes,
Desiree.
yeah,
Yeah,
of course.
it's really helpful to hear you talk about how, that knowledge is already there and it doesn't even necessarily need to be unlocked, but people need to feel empowered to be able to do something about it and to have the training and the knowledge and the perhaps the insights to be able to look at things differently and see different paths forward, that, the narrative can be changed back to something that was before, and also perhaps something new, and helping people to see that, yeah, there is that possibility of something different. Thank you so much for sharing that. And Bob, to you, I'm really curious to hear more about your career and your perspectives, especially from the corporate side of things and sustainability. And so I'm curious to know, from your experience working across generations in the business and sustainability world, what shifts you've seen in how people approach climate action across generations within your time doing sustainability work. And then sort of from there, what change you hope to see moving forward.
Sure. What strikes me as I work with a lot of different people, a lot of different ages as well, is how similar the issues are and how similar the approaches that we need to use are to timeless ideas on how to lead change. Both Abbey and Desiree talked about the challenge of connecting what we are thinking would be a good idea to what they are already concerned about. So Abby mentioned affordability, that people are wrestling with affordability, and that doesn't seem to have a lot to do with the pipelines, the Trans Mountain pipelines and so on. So how do you get them to engage in um, activities that are going to help us achieve some of the objectives that we have? So how do you connect the dots? How do you meet them where they are? Help them understand that what they are concerned about is absolutely what they should be concerned about. And what we are trying to do is approach that issue through a different lens. And it's the same with Desiree when she was talking about sitting down with people and listening to them and having a conversation, and then introducing some of the ideas that we think might be helpful to them. The connecting the dots is one of the biggest challenges that we have as change agents. It's trying to figure out how to use language, how to use approaches that show that we are not coming in from left field on these things, that we're actually trying to help them accomplish some of the things that they care about in the first place. So when I wrote a book called The Sustainability Champions Guidebook, which is how to lead change, one of the practices I really emphasized was meeting people where they are. In other words, even if you don't agree with what they care about, you need to at least acknowledge that that is a valid thing for someone in their position to care about. A good job if you're a young person, but maybe it's not in the oil fields, maybe it's in some other area. So acknowledge that their prioritization of issues is perfectly valid, and what we need to do is to help them achieve whatever it is that they're trying to achieve, a good job, affordability, whatever. And I remind myself about every 2 days about that idea because it's just something which is so important and which we sometimes forget to do in our passion for trying to make something happen, which is frustratingly slow in happening. So I really think that we need to get smarter at doing that, either ourselves or one of the other leadership practices was influence the influencers. So if you're trying to make a change happen and you are an unknown to the decision maker, maybe you work through the system and you connect people that do know that person to your issue and they are the messengers. So um, using the networks that we have and they have to be able to help them um, get the request or the suggestion from someone that they already trust. It's hard to establish a relationship right off the bat. You have to earn that, earn trust. Trust is our biggest asset as change agents. We're not trying to make them do something stupid or that's going to interfere with what they already care about. This is actually going to help them, whether it's affordability, a cheaper way of heating your home with heat pumps and so on, or different approaches that are going to provide them with an opportunity for a different kind of vocation or jobs. So I really think that we just keep relearning the same messages. The the third thing that I think, especially young people are fantastic at, is that I mentioned before, I'm a sole proprietor. From my point of view, that's fantastic. I get to do what I want and when I want and how much I want. That's the good news. The bad news is I'm a sole proprietor. It's just me. Um, so you can't make change happen by yourself. You need to engage others. And young people are fantastic at that. Um, the use of social media, the use of networks and so on. I'm just blown away by how effective they are on connecting with and engaging others on issues that they care about, that they all care about, but they find them and they build a movement. And that's fantastic. So I think we can learn from how we take advantage of those mechanisms these days to be able to build a groundswell of support for the things that we care about because they also care about them.
Thank you, Bob. Yeah, I think you've shared a lot of wisdom about the fact that, we're not coming up against different or new or radically new challenges, that the same challenges keep coming up and the same lessons we're needing to relearn. They just may look a little bit different, or perhaps we need to just keep relearning them in different contexts. But I really like what you said about needing to build trust to be able to meet people where they're at. So I actually want to ask a follow-up question to everyone because I think you did a really nice job of tying together sort of how that's come up from both Abbey and Desiree too. And this is sort of an open question to all three of you. How have you seen, especially, talking intergenerationally, how have you found ways to meet people where they're at, especially across generations in climate action? So yeah, just open question, Abbey, Desiree, Bob, if you want to say more to that.
Um,
Um,
I guess let me start this. And one of the ways that I try to is I try to connect with organizations that have young people in them as well as other people in them as well. So I'm on the board of the Sustainable Purchasing Leadership Council in the States. Their members are a really good cross-section of all different sectors and age groups and so on. I'm on the board of the Circular Innovation Council in Canada, and we look at circular procurement here. And again, they have fantastic young people on staff, and many of their members are young as well. So connect with groups that way. I'm a certified B Corp. I'm on the B Corp Standards Advisory Council. B Corps are really smart young people in many cases. And try to leverage those connections as well. So try to find groups that are on the same wavelength I am and connect with all of their members, not just the more senior ones, everybody, because we can all learn from each other. And I think we have to stay open to that. None of us have all the answers. We need to learn from each other and stay open to new approaches that are going to make us more effective.
Yeah, absolutely, Bob. And I always think that if you don't have the answer, someone out there does have that answer, and all you have to do is just go out and search for it. When it does come down to meeting people where they're at in this climate justice, I'm always coming from the aspect of working in community. And I find that the most important part of community project work, project management, clean energy work, it's the groundwork that you're doing and remembering who you're doing it for. So maybe we're starting to feel a little bit, we're starting to get into the theories of things, we're starting to get the concepts of things, but these aren't concepts to people. These are things that people live with daily, and we don't know what they live with daily or what their issues are, what they feel like this climate change that is happening, it's affecting them directly. So what is it that is affecting them and how can we help them? And I find a lot of the times it's going into the homes. Never go empty-handed, you know, come with like food and come with just an open heart and an open mind. And we have two ears and one mouth for a reason. So don't go in there trying to just spiel out all of these things and like shove down their throat like the word of climate change, you know. Let them speak to you. And we learn so much from just talking to community, and they're so innovative. And you bring together the youth and you talk to the youth and you talk to elders. Those two things, like elders and youth and tradition, it breeds innovation. So the only way we can create up is by starting on the bottom. Not to say that these are like the bottom of the fruit, but it is most important to make sure that what we are doing and where we're starting is we are meeting people where they are, and where they're at is in their homes, on the ground, in community. That's how I feel.
Yeah, I totally agree, Desiree and Bob. Yeah, what I would add is just kind of complementing what you're already saying is for me, I think meeting people where they're at is really about relationships. And
Yeah.
I also think it's really key in this day and age that people get off of screens more and into community, especially for, you know, de-radicalizing people or preventing people from becoming radicalized. And if some people are interested in this kind of work, one way I would approach it or have done in the past is doing like relational organizing. That is actually like a term, you can look it up, but it's a way of, instead of like trying to get people to convince someone of your topic, it's of coming from more inquiry and curiosity and storytelling, and asking people about what's going on for them and seeing what their core issues are. And then kind of connecting and building a bridge to your cause through that deep listening and relationship building first. And I think that's quite important. And something that we do at Youth Climate Corps BC is we actually have a program that runs in many of our communities where young people, it's called Climate Friendly Homes, and they're going, they have information sessions, and then they kind of go in the community to people's residences and talk to them about different energy savings that they could access, and or different light retrofits that they can do to their place. So I think that's also really the power of young people is they can kind of reach sometimes people across generations, and they can they are more accessible and sometimes have less people have less of a guard up if like young people are able to communicate certain pieces, or and that's also been really effective when we work with municipalities. We have the young people who are in our programs, the participants, they're talking to people on the ground about the maybe about their fire smart program or water smart programs, or the community's climate action plan, and they're able to communicate that in a less charged way sometimes. So yeah, that's some ways that I feel like I like to meet people where they're at and how we're doing that in our programs.
So
I'd
Abby, do you
also
have
like to
a
add,
guidebook?
Abby, I'm so sorry, just really quick.
Sorry, go ahead.
just so you know too, you're also creating a job, which is very important.
That's true. Definitely building
Absolutely.
relationships and being within community is definitely like jobs that should be rewarded and really compensated for. Bob, what were you going to say?
I was just going to ask whether you have a guidebook or something like that that helps train young people on how to go about having those conversations in a way that's going to be effective. Because very often that's not instinctively obvious to young folks as to how to connect with people on a wavelength that's going to be a productive one as opposed to a confrontational one.
Yeah, definitely. I do with the folks that were in our youth Common Core programs this past summer. I was doing some trainings kind of personally to kind of teach them about the work that I was doing in partnerships and the campaigning and the organizing, and then also teaching them those skills of like, okay, if you're out in community, how do you talk with somebody who might be maybe a little bit aggressive or might not know what's going on. There's like certain kind of techniques to do that. I think it's best taught like either online or like kind of person to person, those sorts of things. But I'll look and see if there's a guidebook and I can send it to you.
The reason I'm asking is I'm on the Whitby Sustainability Advisory Council Committee. And we work with the town of Whitby on trying to encourage homeowners to do a little bit more to climate proof their homes and get into heat pumps and all that kind of stuff too. And there's one part of the town that has been designated as a neighborhood in which we're going to really do a full court press and all of that. So we've got people going door to door having these conversations. And I was thinking that the style that you referred to is really important as they have those conversations, that they avoid argumentative confrontations and that they engage with people, they listen and so on. That style of making stuff happen is more rare than we like to believe, especially if you're passionate about something.
Yeah, a mentor of mine recently told me it's better to be relational than to be right. And I'm really sitting with that one. And I definitely agree. Sometimes it's hard to practice, but it's so true. I think,
Yeah.
this day and age, we're all trying to prove something. We're all trying to be right. We all have our kind of our own stories and traumas that kind of put us up on guard, right? But yeah.
You'll never change people by shaming them, that's for sure.
Yeah, I like that what's come up when I ask about sort of how we meet people where they're at, even across generations. It's sort of the same, what I'm hearing from you, Bob and Abby and Desiree, all three of you, that just meeting people in that space of what they care about, no matter what that is. And that's for young people, for elders, for adults. There's always going to be something that people care deeply about, and how we can connect that to climate action and to making the world a better place, making their communities a better place, making things safer, more resilient. But I want to follow that to ask, and this is a question open to all of you. When you think about the future that we're working towards, so like this ideal, what it is we're actually working towards with the climate action work that we're doing, what does true intergenerational climate leadership look like to you? If you could imagine a world in which we've got voices from all generations who are leading on climate action truly, what does that look like to you?
I believe when we're speaking about intergenerational, we're talking about a youth that doesn't exist yet. So anytime I'm thinking about the future of my projects, I mentioned before that the projects aren't mine, it's the future youth projects. That's exactly what we're trying to build when we're doing climate leadership. But we cannot build climate leadership because all of the technologies are happening so fast. But we need the capacity and people to operate and maintain these systems that are coming out. We need the people to be able to educate. We need to get into schools. And that's the only way we can actually build this intergenerational climate leadership change. It really, really does come down to the roots of where we're dealing with. Like it's very systemic, the stuff that we're dealing with. We need to come down to the levels of the people that do deal with the climate change. We need to ask them the right questions, and we need to give them the voice And I find too that if you visit a home and maybe they didn't get the concept, or maybe you spent the whole time of them just like complaining to you and you just take it in, let them complain, let them be a little bit angry and just be the punching bait for a little bit, but revisit them and talk to them again and let them know like, hey, I know you're frustrated, but just because you're frustrated, you're allowed to be. That's a human emotion. I'm frustrated too. So remember to visit people and remember to constantly push that narrative of like, I don't have to always, like Abby said, be right, or I don't have to always like push against or like really, really fight this climate change, because at the end of the day, it really is what our community is needing and who's getting affected and what they're needing from us. And that is really what's going to build us up, because if we're building these systems that people don't even care about, that are just going to cost them more money in the long run, and they're going to have to outsource for their operations and their maintenance, and they're constantly going to have to teach people about technology that doesn't really exist. It's not going to last. That's not long-term sustainable change. We need long-term sustainable change, and that comes down to connecting with people, meeting people where they're at, and educating people, and trying to educate them in a way that meets them. Like, a lot of times we speak in these really big business terms, and it makes people feel so scared to get into this. And I'll be so honest, when I first started in the clean energy industry, I knew next to nothing. I was involved in an industry just like Bob prior to something else completely. When I got in, it was learning as I went. I didn't even know like what thermal bridging really was. And eventually now, because I've had the support system, because I got proper mentors, and because people believed in me, and because people had the patience and didn't shame me for not knowing things, that now I'm able to share those voices and speak in front of you guys today and tell you that like my community also deserves that voice. So that to me is what would be long-term sustainable intergenerational climate leadership change.
Love that. One thing that comes up for me is I think, yeah, long-term sustainable intergenerational work has to involve fun. It has to involve recreation. I think it's so it's understandable. Like, we feel like we're in a fight. We feel like we need to keep pushing. But I think that it's so easy to just always think of like, what's the next thing? What's the next thing I need to check off of my to-do list, rather than to truly just sit with the people you're working alongside, to take a breath, to maybe go for a walk together, or to join a choir together, or play some sports. I think it's really important that there is rest and regeneration in our movements, and that we do that together. And I would love to see that like across generations, and people being able to meet each other through that rest and recreation, so that we can be like sustainable literally within the movement. And I also think of mentorship. I think that having mentorship networks, I'm sure that some of them exist, but I'm curious if it's really focused about like across generations, because I know that young people in Youth Climate Corps, for example, from the perspective that I see, they really, they struggle to know what the next step is for them. We're providing them workforce training and development and professional development, but if there was, ways that young people could have access to people who've been in this field for a while, or the field that they want to go into, and that they can talk to them about that, and they can maybe share. But I feel like it could be mentorship that's maybe not just one way, right? It can be bottom up as well, or top down, and like that the young people can be teaching folks of older generations what they're seeing and what challenges are happening for them. So yeah, that's something I would love to see, is rest and recreation, and maybe more mentorship.
That's a great point. We need people, so don't burn yourselves out, please. We need you guys here. Please take a walk when you need them.
I think
I
don't
agree.
burn yourself out. And also, I think so many of the, like when I hear, asking the question, like what got you into climate work, I think so much of it is the connection to each other, connection to land, connection to, yeah, maybe it's, I love, pond hockey, or I love skiing, or I love, going swimming in the summertime, and picking berries in the summer, and just seeing like that's a lot of the reasons that, people come to mind when they talk about the reason why they're in climate work in the first place. So I think it's sort of
Yeah.
both. It's like reconnecting with the reasons why we do the work in the first place, and also just sustaining ourselves for the long haul. And Bob, yeah, any thoughts from you on what long-term climate leadership could look like?
Sure. Let me first just pick up on something that Desiree said about the language that we use. I remember interviewing Amory Lovins. Amory Lovins is in charge of the Rocky Mountain Institute. The guy walks on water when it comes to sustainability. Really, really brilliant guy. Anyway, I was interviewing him for one of the books I was writing, and I started off by saying, "What do you call sustainability? Is that what you use, or something else?" And he said, "Well, I never use the S word." I thought, oh, I've got sustainability in everything, including the name of my sole proprietorship. Oh, I said, oh, really? So what do you call it? He says, I call it whatever they want to call it. If they want to talk about water, we talk about water. If they want to talk about trees, we talk about trees. If they want to talk about food, we talk about food. And after we've talked about what they want to talk about and we've done something that they want to do about that particular issue, then maybe we have a little more um, involved conversation about other things that they might want to pay attention to as well. But I never start with that word, especially if they don't. So just a reminder of how intimidating our language can be to others that aren't using it day after day after day. I mean, sustainability has 6 syllables. Profit has 2. So if you're talking to a business person, keep it simple.
I like,
So
yeah, KISS is always remember. I always remember
exactly.
that one. Yeah.
But coming back to the question you're asking, Taylor, I see this intergenerational approach to leadership on issues that we care about not as sort of a nice to do, it's a must do. Because we have to scale all of the things that we're doing, the things that Desiree are doing with her community. We need to package that up and scale it into other communities as well. And the same thing with what Abbey's doing in Vancouver. We need to
Mhm.
package that up and move it across the country and have all of the communities, municipalities, engaging their youth in a similar kind of way. From my perspective, I'm trying to get the federal government to use net zero procurement with their suppliers, which would be really
Mhm.
cool. But I need that to be cascaded into the provinces, into municipalities, into every jurisdiction on the planet for us to be really able to make a difference. So the thing that we all struggle with as change agents is scale. I mean,
Mhm.
we can really make a difference locally, which is fantastic, but I see that as a proving ground so that we can then clone that,
Yep.
replicate it, spread it. And that's where the real leverage comes from our efforts. And the smarter we are on packaging that and getting it out into the hands of other people that are on the same wavelength we are, I think the sooner we're going to be able to do what needs to be done on these really, really pressing issues. So we need to engage intergenerational folks. We need to engage seniors' homes, schools, all of these folks on applying some of the ideas that we think are going to be helpful, useful, and relevant to them.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Bob. Yeah, getting out of just the corporate perspective of sustainability and really getting into those spaces where people work, where people live, meeting people where they're at. I think that keeps coming up in this conversation to be able to go and Abby said it too, with the folks who are working in the trades, like to find the ways that we can engage with all people on the issues of climate, and have this be something that we can make change at scale. Thank you, everyone. And we're almost at the top of the hour, and I think it's wild to me that yeah, already we've just been talking so long, and I want to keep
It went so
talking, but
fast.
I know I have one quick question for you folks. Maybe if you can answer in 30 seconds to a minute each. I'd like to know what's one piece of advice that you'd offer to climate champions of any generation who want to make a difference right now.
Look for people who are into it. I want to say really quickly on the aspect of scaling things and the mentorship. I mentioned earlier that I graduated Indigenous Clean Energy. It's a great resource if you want to start finding mentors. You don't have to be. It's a great resource for everybody. We do focus primarily on Indigenous folks, but it's being scaled, and we're trying to pack that up, and we're trying to open source as well. So. Um, that would be my advice, is like, look for those resources, look for people. We're out here, we're all trying to be here for you, and it's a very intimidating sphere. Don't be intimidated. A lot of us came into this not knowing anything, and give yourself some compassion, give yourself a break. It's not easy.
Thank you, Desiree.
Yeah, let me just build on that. I really think that the
Oops, Bob, I accidentally muted you. I'm so sorry.
that's okay. I just wanted to build on what Desiree said. I really think it's important that we cut ourselves some slack, that we can't do everything that needs to be done. And if we walk around with this great big cloud over our heads saying, oh, things are really, really bad, they're getting worse, we're not going to be people that others want to cozy up to or have anything to do with. So I think we need to do what we can, not take it all on ourselves, collaborate with others, get other organizations and people engaged with us. But stay upbeat, stay excited about the possibilities, and we can pull this off together. I really am convinced of that, and we just have to be smarter about how to engage others in what we're doing.
Thank you for that reminder, Bob.
Yes, I really love both of your responses. It's very similar to what I reflected on for this and wrote down. I actually said, you're doing a great job. So it's not as much advice, but just affirmation that you're doing a great job and that you're enough. Sometimes it can feel that our cause and our fight is never ending. And it's really important to find those like pockets of enoughness and just like recognizing the things that you are doing. I like to actually write a did-do list instead of a to-do list because I think it's really important to like think about the things that you have done and you have accomplished, and that helps resource yourself for continuing. And I also think my advice is to take care of yourself, but also to do that in community and find those people. And I recently joined a choir that I go to every single week, and it's just been so amazing to have something that's not necessarily directly connected to like my activism, but of course it is because I'm like building community, right? But it's something that is bringing me joy and allows me to step away from the day-to-day and how intense it can be. So that's my advice.
Abby, I would argue that is you taking care of the environment. You can't fill other people's cup when yours is empty.
Exactly.
I wish we had more
Personal
time for you to sing for
sustainability
us. I'm
trumps
not
every
gonna
other
lie.
kind of sustainability.
I love this.
We'll have
Thank
to
you
do
so much,
another
folks,
one,
for
then I'll
your
sing.
No, thank you, Taylor. This has been so amazing.
Yeah, I just want to say a huge thank you to all three of you. And I think like what wonderful words to close out on to remind people that, if you've just shown up to this event to hear this conversation, if you're doing work in your community, if you're trying to push forward change within your job and feeling stuck, that work is important. That work is valid. The conversations you're having are valid. Some of the things that I've heard from the three of you in closing, like find your people, maintain your own personal resilience for the long haul so that you can commit yourself to this work in an ongoing way. It's the work of our lifetimes, and it's not the work of any one of us alone. It's the work of all of us, no matter what it is we do, where we're located. We can all find ways to enter into this and support each other in the work. So thank you so much, all three of you. I'll ask Erin if you can just pull our slides up just so we can close out the event. But yeah, I'm sad to see that we're already at the top of the hour. But I'm so grateful for all three of your time and for everyone who joined us today to listen in on this conversation. Like I said, I wish we only had more time to speak to each other. But I did just want to share quickly before we close out. We've got a campaign going for donations in the season of giving. And so to be able to support some of our other work at ASI, specifically the work for our youth programming and our nonprofit programming, those audiences who, we're looking to support the most, or perhaps not the most, but, additionally to programming like this. We've
Yeah.
got this campaign going that if you donate by December 2nd, you've got a chance to win a print by the wonderful Canadian artist, The Creative Traveler, which is shown here. So you have a chance to win any print under a specific set amount. But yeah, really beautiful art pieces that I feel I need to have a piece in my home for sure. I think really inspires me and reconnects me to the climate work as well. So art is important. Your donations are
Yeah.
so important. Your time is important. So we'd really value any of your
Yeah.
support. And with that, in our last minute here, I just want to say thank you so much for connecting with us, for joining
you.
us today. To Abbey, Desiree, and Bob, thank you for sharing your time and your stories and your wisdom
That's
with us. Yeah, and I wish everyone a wonderful rest of your day. And yeah, thanks again, everyone.
Yes.
Take good care.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for
Take
showing
care.
up. This has been great.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Onward.
Thank you, everyone.
And I will be reaching out to you, Abby and Bob, 100%.
Yay!
Have a good one,
Love to
guys.
continue the conversation.
Me too.
Bye.
I'm very excited.